Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Sophie Ziegler. I'm the events coordinator for Library Juice. And I'm going to just say a couple of things about Library Juice and what we're up to here as people are still coming into the room, just to help orient us in this event and the wider range of everything that we're doing. But I'm so glad that you're here. I'm glad that I'm here. I'm so excited for this new title. So briefly, Library Juice, we've got three main arms. We have Library Juice Academy, in which we teach continuing education courses for all of us in the library land. So all of us who are professional librarians, who are paraprofessional librarians, who are just sort of interested in librarianship and archives and everything else that we do. Take a look at libraryjuiceacademy.com to see all the great courses that we offer, new ones every month. Really a lot of great stuff there. We also have Library Juice Press, which put out the title that we're celebrating today. We publish books and journals on the critical angles of LIS, again, writ large. And we have an amazing uh, backlog of titles to take a look at through our website. We have wonderful titles coming out all the time from both the books and the journals. A lot of calls for papers happening now. Please do take a look. We are an imprint of Litwin Books, so you can find us at litwinbooks.com. And then finally, Library Juice Connections, which is who's hosting this today. We are the arm that tries to bring everyone together to talk about big issues on librarianship these days. We work with the press to celebrate new titles, such as what we're doing today. And we work with the academy to bring together the instructors to talk more about the topics that they teach and are passionate about. And we also work with everybody in the field to find out what topics we would like to hear about, what's happening that we feel like we need groups around to discuss. If you have ideas about what you would like to talk about, I hope you'll reach out. You can find our contact information as well as an amazing growing collection of recorded talks at libraryjuiceconnections.org. And that is everything I wanted to say. Check us out, Library Juice. We're doing a lot of fun stuff. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Pim to host and run today's event. Pim?
Thank you, Sophie. So I would like to share screen. Okay, ค่ะ So สวัสดีค่ะ and hello everybody and welcome. So thank you very much for joining us today for the launch of the Archival Pedagogies, a new title from the Litwin Books and Library Juice Press. So we are really glad to see such a great audience gather from the different places and time zones. Yeah. So my name is Pim from the University of Chulalongkorn, based in Bangkok, Thailand. And this session will run for about an hour. So we will have the presentations from our speakers and then followed by the discussion. So everybody, please feel free to drop your question in the chat box at any time, and we will return to them later in the session. Yeah. So I would like to invite one of the editors of our book, Dr. Magdalena, to briefly introduce us to the Archival Pedagogies book. Please connect that.
Thank you so much, Pim, and thank you everybody who's here with us today. Actually, before I will just tell you a bit about why I am so happy with this work, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to the editors, James, Pim, and Seppo, for their dedication and hard work. I also extend my deep gratitude to the authors, not only for preparing their text and for generously sharing their knowledge and experience in this way, but also for their patience. So the entire process dragged on for a very long time. Along the way, we changed publishers, actually. So approximately 2.5 years passed between sending out the call for papers for the first time and now the moment of publication. So thank you for your patience and for not losing faith in this project. We also sincerely thank our review board. Since the chapters we received were highly diverse in terms of themes and geography, we decided to review them in a journal-like mode, that is, with 2 or 3 reviewers per chapter, rather than for the whole book, So the goal of this approach was to ensure the publication's quality, but it also took a lot of work, countless emails, and deep engagement from the reviewers. So therefore, I extend my profound thanks to our reviewers, Marina, Mfo, Weimei, Mariam, Asman, Monica, Nempombe, Nathan, Heather, Grayson, Fiorella, Charles, Florian, and I hope I haven't omitted anyone. Thanks to their dedication and expertise, we were able to ensure the highest possible quality for this book. And from my perspective, and I'm from Poland, I work at a Polish university. I am thrilled that this book is so profoundly international. Much of the archival science scholarship in international circulation, let's say, comes from just a few countries, mainly the US, UK, Canada, and Australia, which could give the impression that archival science is most developed there, and that is certainly not the whole truth, including in this realm of archival education, as I hope this publication demonstrates. I also sincerely believe that making archival education more international is on one hand very necessary, but on the other challenging, among other reasons due to terminology, differences in archival traditions, legal issues, and how the profession of archivists and records manager, how these professions are regulated in certain countries, in certain regions. And I hope that in the near future we will see further activities aimed at diversifying the dialogue on archival education. I'm very happy that we managed to finish this process, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. So thank you again, and I hand the floor back to Pim.
Thank you, Magda. So without further ado, I would like to kindly introduce our first speaker today. Yeah, so our first speaker today is Dr. Magali Moisson, and she will be the representative of her team. Yeah, so Dr. Magali Moisson is a senior lecturer in the archival science at the University of Angers. And she's also a researcher with the TIMOS laboratory. Her work focuses on how the archives are used and created, particularly how different communities, for example, researchers, HIV/AIDS organizations, and environmental groups engage with and mobilize their records in practice. So their chapter is called Social Archival Science, Social Science and Archivist Training, a French Experiment, which is under the first part of our book. The first part is called Archival Pedagogy for Social Change, Reaching Education and Community Empowerment. So I would like to invite Dr. Magali to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Pim, for the introduction. We also have slides, so maybe Benedict can share it. It's great. I can see it now. Thank you very much, Benedict. So together with my two co-authors, Benedict Tegray and Patrice Marcillot, we wrote the chapter Social Archival Science, Social Sciences and Archivist Training, a French Experiment, as you told us, sorry. So we decided to examine archivist training in France by asking ourselves the following question: what is the place granted social sciences in the training of French archivists, and what does it contribute? To answer this question, we have written a 4-part chapter. First, we presented our methodology, and we provided them an overview of archival education in France before focusing on the curriculum offered at the University of Angers, where we practice social archival science. So this is a key point of our chapter. In our view, archival science grounded in social archival research, grounded in social archival science, is inherently linked to the social sciences. And we place great importance on incorporating a strong archival and social science research dimension into our teaching. And the last section of the chapter demonstrated, on the basis of 3 case studies, that an early acculturation to social sciences enriches the return to practice and fieldwork. To address the topic of the chapter, we collected data from all the French training programs declaring a connection to the archival profession to situate our own practice within the archival education offer in France. Next, to examine the integration of social archival research methodologies in our learning program at University of Angers, we analyzed a corpus of 174 research theses presented between 2009 and 2019, as well as course programs, online presentations, internal documentation, to arrive at a model of the links between research process, competencies, and learning settings as implemented in our Master in Archival Science. And finally, by drawing on 3 research projects conducted by or with archival students, we were able to demonstrate the validity and the relevance of our approach. So I'll start first about vocational training for careers in archives in France. In France, the archival system is ancient and built around the public records repositories that have meshed the territory since the French Revolution. Archival vocational training is usually associated with the diploma of archivist paleographer delivered by the École nationale des chartes that you may know since 1829. But over the last 30 years, the vast majority of archivists have qualified through the universities, and the École nationale des chartes is not a university. In France, national diploma are validated by the state, which guarantees their quality, and the programs are determined within a national framework and are regulated by an evaluation agency. So we decided to analyze the teaching programs of 9 masters that offer a block worth over 100 hours of archival courses and 1 other trained students in archival science, but provides no hourly breakdown. Over the 10 university courses listed, 7 are incorporated in an history department and 8 are run by historians. So you can see clearly the predominance of history in archival education in France, and we have an average of 19% of the courses in history in France, in archival science masters. 5 of the masters preparing for archival work offer research in history, and archives are studied under the lens of the sous status for historians. Angers Master is the only one that makes a research thesis in archival science compulsory, and evaluation agency reports suggest a limited infusion of social science methodology that can be found only in 2 masters, Angers on the one hand, and Paris-Saclay, which is another one on the other hand. The next part of our chapter is about education and research in our university, at the University of Angers. We champion a third way for archival science and its autonomization, neither an information nor an history subordinated science. So our archival research draws on concepts from other social sciences such as ethnography, sociology, as well as methods like questionnaire and interview-based survey and observation. Drawing on the models developed by Kennel and Kern on the one hand and Trump and Hildbrand on the other hand, we have proposed our own model of the links between research process, competencies, and learning settings as implemented in the University of Angers. You can see it on the slide. We figured that the acquisition of the research process competencies follows 3 stages and correlates with level of mastery, task complexity, and maturity, which can only be achieved through experimentation. So the first stage was about understanding the stakes, grasping research trends, putting together problematics and state of the art. The second one is the very art of the research activity, and the third one is about the research group and the dissemination of findings. 7 competency clusters organize the acquisition process. Each cluster correlates with either project plan within the course or educational proposal. And the gradual acquisition of competencies is spaced throughout the semesters to establish the interconnection between course, research, and vocational settings, and to progress in stages. The analysis of master's thesis over a 10-year period shows the prevalence of qualitative methods and the result to quantitative methods stabilized at around 50%. And it's interesting to note that methods are nearly always merged. And whereas in the 2000s, our students often engaged in the study of the history of archives of archival institutions, they choose these days programmatics probing more and more systematically issues of social uses under a postmodern or an interactionist angle. So the last part of our chapter is called An Education in Social Sciences that will permeate professional practice. In this final section, we propose to show through 3 examples that the social science involvement can contribute to the training of archivists in 3 areas, addressing 3 classic and crucial domains of archival science: public service, service policy, and appraisal practices. I will just focus on the last 2 ones. About service policy first, our French archivist services are increasingly developing strategic plans that include an activity report on the definition of objectives, which generally cover all aspects of the service operations and often involve setting priorities. A lexical analysis of 32 strategic plans as part as a research program called 2RU, Reconfiguration of User Relations, along with 2 non-participatory overt observations, providing insight into our social science perspective could enrich professionals' reflections. Thus, by drawing on the concepts of professionality or license and mandates that you may know, we saw that professionals appear to waver between the reassessment of license, which means they will get regulatory missions, and the self-mandating drive, taking on missions fitting one's competencies, but without society's express delegation. The third and final case study highlights the fact that archival professionals view the uses of archives as primarily historical in nature. In France, historians are clearly the targets, the ideal audience. The concept of logic of uses that is used in library science by Poisneau and Rangard could be usefully applied by archivists to encourage the recognition that each user injects in his relation to archives a multiplicity of meanings. And we advocate for reorientation of archival practices around a concept called ego archives, which applies equally to documents and to logics of uses that enable a person to set up strategies towards the formation of their individuality. So I will just briefly conclude by providing our contact information and 2 resources that will help you understand the concept of social archival science as presented in this article. The first one is the ALMA blog, which features numerous posts written by our students, including reports from their Archival Science Day in Angers. And the second one is a special issue of the journal La Gazette des Archives, which is coming out in a few weeks based on the work carried out as part of the 2RU project I presented. So thank you very much for your attention. I think there is time after for questions, and we will be pleased to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. McKenzie. That is a very insightful presentation. So I would like to introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker will be talking about his chapter, which is called The Archival Science Revolution in the Amazon, Electronic Records in Paper Mines. And this chapter is under the second part of the book, which is called The Digital Pedagogy, Rethinking Archival Education Through Technology. So the presenter on behalf of his team is Dr. Christian Barrios Pata, who is a professor at the Federal University of Pará in Brazil. He is working in archival and information science His research explores digital inclusion, cyberculture, and sustainability in the Amazon, as well as the role of the archives and technology in preserving social memory and scientific heritage. And he is also affiliated with the Interparks Trust AI network. So now I would like to pass the floor over to Christian. And so please take it over. Thank you.
Many thanks, Pim. Many thanks, Magdalena, and all the organizers. It's an honor to be here and to share my presentation and see how that works. Okay. So, well, we have already been presented with my colleagues, Fernando da Silva Rodriguez and Gilberto Gomez Candido. We produced this research. We were based on this perspective that takes Terry Cook's vision about this post-custodial capacity of an archivist, in which a critical view would be much more dynamic than just sitting and looking for some papers to be in custody. And on the other side, we articulated that with the center periphery theory, which has been in part one big development in Latin America. There's a sociologist which have taken this idea of a center and a periphery in the academic area, which is Shields. But also there's Raul Prebisch, which in the 60s produced a very strong theory explaining the way in which the order is organized on what we today call the North and the South, and how that produces dependencies and systems alignment. So just 1 second, because I forget to put here my clock, so I would not. So the idea is that the question was, how would this affect archival studies and the formation of archivists in Brazil, and specifically in a place of Brazil, which is the Amazon. I live in the first part of the Amazon, where you're coming from the Atlantic. That is the city where I am based, which is Belém, in the state of Pará. Here you have some maps that I hope you can see. Are you able to see the maps? Tim? Okay. So the first one tells you that Brazil is divided into 5 regions. There are like 27, 26 states, but we are divided into 5 regions. The Amazon is in the north, the green one, which I don't know if you can see here, which is like 50% of the territory. You can imagine how huge is this area, the north region. Now, the difference between human development, economical development, and all the like is really big. So what would be the poor part of Brazil is in the north, and the rich part is in the south. Now, but the Amazon goes beyond the north region of Brazil, because it's not only an ecosystem, but it's a culture based in indigenous traditions. And now we have another area, which is called the legal Amazon, which takes more of Brazil, which here is like 55% of the territory. And then we have the Pan-Amazonic region, which includes not only Brazil, but another 8 countries. So that area is bigger than whole Europe. So what would you imagine if the whole territory of Europe, you would only have 2 schools of archival science? And that is the situation of the Amazon. We have 1 school at Manaus, the capital of the state of Amazon, and we have 1 school here at Belém, the capital of the state of Pará. And if this geographical element is not struggling, it is not punching you, if you look at the dates in which these schools in archival studies, but also in information science, showed up, were founded, you will see that between the foundation of the first school in Rio de Janeiro, Unirio, 1973, until the foundation in Manaus and Belém, 2008, 2012, you got like 50 years of difference. So you got not only a geographical huge difference, but a difference in time. That means that the human capital of the Amazon has been formed extremely recent, and you have only very few centers that can form archivists. This here is showing you in a timeline the two universities here at the north that have schools for archival studies. Now, what we did, we look for, we made an analysis, content analysis on all the, all the programs of 16 faculties that provide services to form archivists in whole Brazil. All of them are public faculties. The idea was we want to look for recurrences regarding the formation but mainly the relation with technology, as we understand that one of the main points of this new way of understanding archival studies is technology. One of the first outcomes was how many subjects related to technology do each of these programs have? You will see at the top, the north, the conclusion is 8%. The south, the conclusion is 14%, more or less double in quantity. Next result, how many hours in formation about or related to technology these programs have? Again, the north, the conclusion is 10%. The south is 19%. Number of mandatory subjects that are related to technology, because we understood that if this is mandatory, that should be the core of the course. Again, if you see in the results, Northeast and North, for example, in one of the University of Northeast, the average of this relation is nil. It's not mandatory. And when I say mandatory subjects related to technology, it doesn't imply that you have the infrastructure to take the students and train them in technology with computers, which is our case. So this trend was making us form archivists that have a very theoretical idea of what is archaeology, and whose possibility of having a big impact in regard to jumping from the custody of physical records to the possibility of having digitalized or digital records that could be spread and could have a voice worldwide was minimal, because we do not have infrastructure. Then we came to have our first post-graduation in information science, which was a huge change in the game. Today, we are the only one center in the Amazon that have a PhD in information science. So again, this reinforces the same trend. And this new post-graduation began to support the formation of PhD, of course, of local PhD. This could attract federal resources. Federal resources go where you have post-graduation. If you don't have post-graduation, you do not receive resources, monies and things like that. The possibility of entering and developing relevant projects. You have heard that I am affiliated to Interpares. It is because of this. There was no other possibility when this was not in the map. And finally, visibility and recognition that, again, are the key of the game in academy. What are the conclusions? There are a numerous amount of elements that configure this relation center periphery. Some of them seem to be not quite impressive, but when you join all of them, you understand how difficult it is for us when you are at the bottom of the ladder to try to climb up to the top. First one is bilingualism. We have very few people that speak English. We do not have an institutional policy about bilingualism. Scarce interest in international networking. So people do not speak English, they can't or they don't want to face the challenge of doing what we're doing in this moment. Lack of economic resources. We all suffer this disinvestment in education. In Brazil, is huge, the disinvestment. Concentrated technology skills, as I have already shown to you, the South, although in all Brazil, we do not have strong technological skills. The very weak area that has almost none is the North, is the Amazon. Insufficient infrastructure. I have come to the conclusion that somehow people in my university don't understand that an archivist would require a computer because you tell them and they do not understand. Burned out syndrome. Because we are few, because we don't have resources, we have to work 10 times more to achieve the same thing that other professionals would achieve. So we are all burned out. Disinvestment, I have already talked about that. Archival science invisibility. When you hear about the big projects here in the Amazon, biology, computer science, more biology, we do not exist. Seems that we are transparent. So work and achievement is not enough. We have been quite successful in the post-graduation, having these possibilities of going in worldwide projects, and still we do not collect what we think is fair for those achievements. On the part of the students, as we are not the kind of profession that everyone wants to be. Everyone wants to be a medical, a lawyer, an engineer. Who wants to be an archivist? So what we receive in regard to students are those that could not match enough points to get to these very demanded careers. So that means that they come without motivation. They don't know what they are going to do. Yes, some of them get in love with archival studies, and that's super. But most of them do not know what they are coming to. And to end, we are a country in which the evaluation is persistent. In this moment, we have 5 reais from Brazil to $1 or 6 to €1. And that impacts, of course, the possibilities of a professor like me to going to the world to try to get into conference. There are not enough calls, and those calls are in local currency. So we have limitations to acquire goods. Those goods have these planned obsolescence problems. So every 5 years, you need to renew your scanners, renew your computers. We cannot afford that. The labor market has been accustomed to be in an area of extractivist economy. So they do not look for an archivist with aggregate value. It's not of their interest. So post-custodial archivists are not in demand. And those who begin to be post-custodial archivists suffer a brain drain, and they end their careers at the South or out of Brazil. So this is our situation. Unfortunately, many thanks for your attention. That down is my email. Anyone would like to contact me. And well, many thanks for all your attention. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Christian, for a very compelling reflection on your chapter about the Amazon context. So before we move on to our last speaker, I would like to kindly remind everybody that if you have any question for a discussion, please feel free to drop them in the chat box and we will return to them later. Okay, so our last speaker today is Alexandra Pucciarelli, who is a PhD candidate in the Library and Information Science at the Rutgers University in the US. And her research examines the ethical archival practices, especially in relation to disability, justice, trauma, and affect. So she studies how archives function as the site of power and engagement, and also her work appears in academic journals and edited volumes on archival pedagogy. So please welcome Alexandra.
Thank you so much for having me. I do not have a PowerPoint, so you'll just be seeing me. Yeah, I would like to start with a very simple point. The disabled are the largest minority group in the world, yet they're given very little attention within the archival literature. Within the American context, 1 in 3 Americans will become disabled for at least 90 days before the age of 65. Yeah, so it's a group, yeah, it's a identity people can come in and out of. Yeah. Okay. And even as archives programs continue to have important discussions about disability, diversity, disability just does not include. I'm gonna just wipe that sentence. Yeah, DEI has become a larger conversation with information science programs. Yeah, disability has been largely excluded from it. So in my chapter, I'm asking a very direct question. What would archival education look like if disability wasn't an afterthought, but a starting point? To ground this, I briefly worked through 3 models of disability that shape how archives function. First is the medical model, where disability is pathologized. People are listed as symptoms. The second is the social model, which is grounded in the idea that disability is created by inaccessibility, that if the world was made fully accessible, then it would be great. Then there would be no problems. And then there's a complex embodied model, which is far more useful, which pulls in social experiences, and also inaccessibility in the larger world. But these models aren't just existing within the larger literature; they are very present within archives. An example of a very, very, very pathologized one, if you wanted to look up language that they use, is the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There are other places that are far more progressive kind of move. But yeah, you can see evidence of this different language and evolving collections. Yeah, just by looking through this language. Also, I think it's really important to note the fact that seeing this kind of language used in your workplace, it can make you feel like you're somebody who doesn't belong. You're not somebody who should work in the archive. You're somebody who's stored in the archive. Your data is stored there. You are not somebody who can manage data. Yeah, but archives don't just share history, they actively shape it. So then from there, my work shifts from critique to pedagogy. If we want archives to change, we have to change how archivists are trained. This project grew out of a workshop I facilitated at the Archival Education Research Institute in 2022, where participants collaboratively designed a syllabus on disability justice and archival praxis. If anybody would like to see the resources, I'm very happy to share them. One of the things that was very important about that space was it brought people from a variety of roles, graduate students, faculty, and practitioners, and they created room for a lived experience and not just theory. We weren't just asking what to teach, we were asking how to teach, how that teaching itself might need to change. And an idea that we kept coming up with over and over again is the word flexibility. Okay. Out of the workshop, we developed what we call the Flexibility and Learning Manifesto. It has 3 main commitments: flexible deadlines, flexible assessment, and flexible ways for students to demonstrate learning. And this is all grounded in the concept of crib time, which challenges rigid institutional timelines. As Alison Kafer puts it, rather than bending disabled bodies to meet the clock, crib time bends the clock to meet disabled bodies. And what's important here isn't just about accommodation, it's about rethinking the structure of the classroom itself. Flexibility isn't lowering standards, it's creating conditions for more equitable learning. Another key intervention in my chapter is pushing beyond the idea of disabled people as users of archives to workers. Much of the LAS literature focuses on how to serve disabled patrons, which is important, but it often ignores the fact that disabled people are archivists, they're librarians, they're educators. And this matters because the profession is shaped by ideas like vocational awe, this belief that libraries and archives are inherently good and they're beyond critique, and the work that we're doing in them is important. And like we should be able to we push past our limits because because we work at this great place. And it's also shaped by neoliberal ideas of productivity. What value is tied to output? Within these frameworks, disabled workers are often seen as through a deficit lens or excluded altogether. So if only we think about the access in terms of users, that's how exclusion is built on the profession itself. So, and then just closing works. I want to end by thinking about the future. A lot of the work about disability institutions, information institutions, focuses on inclusion, on helping disabled people fit into existing systems. But what if the goal isn't inclusion in the current system? What if the goal is to reimagine the system entirely? Drawing on ideas of futurity, my chapter argues for a future where access isn't just a checklist, a technical requirement, but something collective, relational, ongoing. So this isn't just about making archives more accessible. It's about fundamentally rethinking what we mean by knowledge, access, and care, and what gets to shape these things. So thank you guys very much. Sorry, I hope I did not speak too quickly.
Right. Okay, thank you, Alexandra. Yes, and also thank you all the speakers for the thoughtful and engaging presentations. So I believe we have around 15 minutes for the discussion. And I saw some question in the chat box. So the first question, I think maybe Sophie may answer this one. So this is about the book's content. And would it be possible to ask for translation permission? Sophie, would you like to?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and answer that question in the box. But in short, I have less to do with the press side of things. So if I can, I'll just direct this question to somebody who will be able to answer it.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. And also there is another question about the table of content of the book. Can we access it on the publishing house website?
Great question. Let me check. And it is not currently there, but I will see about getting it up.
Okay. Yeah. So we have another question. This one is for Dr. Christian. So it is asking about whether archivists or records managers or information professionals working in the archival sector are certified professionals in Brazil.
Yes, they are. Indeed, there's a law here in Brazil that requires that if you want to take care of any public archive, you need to have formation as archivist. Now, the difference between Brazil and maybe North America and Europe is that when you graduate as archivist, that's a pre-graduation degree. It's not a post-graduation degree. Why? I don't know. Sincerely, I don't know. But the thing is that somehow that might be nice because the person knows his profession is to be archivist. Now, you understand that, for example, if you are going to be the curator of, the other day I was hearing about a collection of a Nobel Prize in biology that gave all his documents. Well, you need to be an expert on that, not only be an archivist. And for me, this idea that you are archivist, it's suspiciously nearby to this you are the one who is going to be sitting down guarding those papers and nothing else, which is not what we're trying to do today. So yes, they are graduated. Yes, there are requirements for the public sector, not for the private sector. But also, yes, there's this bias to this kind of archivist, which is the well, the one who guards the papers and nothing else. Okay, that would be my answer.
Thank you, Dr. Christian. So I believe we have another question for Dr. Christian as well. So what are the connections with other Latin American archives, organizations, the same to other presenters as well? What are the regional networks you are connected to? So
Well,
start with
again,
Dr.
you know that connections depend a lot on visibility. Everyone wants to connect with the National Archives of Great Britain because they are very visible. Maybe no one wants to connect with the local archives of Pará because we are invisible. So you would have quite certain connections with the Brazilian Institute of Information and Technology, the BICT, which has not only funding from the central government, the federal government, but it's been working since 1970 something in this area and information in general. But Brazil has one characteristic which is quite strong. Brazil is a word which is like a lot always looking to what is happening into Brazil and not out of Brazil. There seems to be quite like a mental barrier additional to the geographical barrier of the Amazon and the Andes. So you don't see this very close collaboration between the Andean countries, the Guyane, and Brazil. Indeed, in this moment, part of what in this moment, I am the coordinator of the post-graduation. So what I have thought is our mission is to create those entanglements, those connections with Guyane, with the Andean countries. So we begin to help to found schools for archival studies, for librarian studies, and for post-graduation, because we do not have. In Colombia, for example, I was born in Colombia, although I live in Brazil, and I also am Brazilian. Being an archivist is something like a technical course that you would take in 2 years, and that's it. So it seems to be quite frequent in Latin America that the idea of an archivist is like a technical, discarding some dusty papers, and not the idea of someone which has an active part in keeping alive the historical voice of a population and keeping the sovereignty of this culture in front of other cultures that have big machinery like Hollywood and etc. that creates an idea of history that maybe is not necessarily the one that we have. So yeah, not so many corporations as we would like to have, mainly in the Amazon.
Thank you. And also perhaps other two speakers would like to respond as well. Can I start with Dr. Makali with this question? What are the regional networks you are connected to? Please unmute your microphone first.
Sorry, I forgot my microphone. I guess in Alger, we are really connected with other institutions in the what we call francophonie, which means French-speaking areas. So we really have connections with Canada and specifically Quebec in Canada. We also have connections with Belgium, Switzerland, and African countries. I know other the masters also have connections with African countries. So I guess this is more about the French-speaking area for us.
Thank you. And how about you, Alexandra?
So a lot of the conversations that are happening about disability in archives, it's very North American based. It's very US. It's very, very, very Canada. Grayson Bromeyer does a lot of amazing, amazing work about disability in archives, and as does Lydia Tang. Yeah. So, yeah. I can't. Yeah. I don't have. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
Right. We got another question. I think this one is for Dr. Magali. Yeah, so they're asking about the integrating social science frameworks into the archival training, which reshaping the archivist role. Yeah, so the question is, what can be the tensions that may arise from this shift?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. What can be the tensions between?
The tensions that may arise from the shift by integrating the social science framework. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there can be tensions because I think it works quite well. So I guess the tension is more about accepting the interest of social archival science from the profession, from archivists themselves. Because if I think about our students, I think they fit very well in this particular way of seeing things. But maybe it's quite difficult from archivists to use sociology or to see articles written about them using sociology. They're not quite used about it. So if there is tension, I think this is this one. But I'm not sure I wouldn't say it's a tension, actually. I would say it's sometimes misunderstood, but that's not very, very important, I think.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Magali. So next question, I think this is for Alexandra. So to what extent are the current institutional efforts toward inclusivity performative, and what structural changes are necessary to achieve meaningful and long-term impact?
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of conversations that go on within universities about how to make classrooms more accessible, and a lot of assumptions are made about what accessibility looks like. People assume that certain accommodations will work for everybody. There's this idea of universal design that just does not work. Also, I think it's horrible. There's a lot of distrust of students who are asking for accommodations. And for me, I really see that we should begin with like a base of accessibility. When I teach, I really try to be flexible as much as possible, even though it is very hard. Institutional frameworks where where grades are due at a certain time. Yeah. Let's say, yeah, I think we're on our way. We're starting to have the conversations, but we're not there yet. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing. So I see Dr. Christian raise your hand. Yeah. Please unmute your
Wait.
microphone.
Yeah, I just wanted to complement what Magali was saying, which is what we see here is that this custodial bias, which is extremely strong, implies that being an archivist is a profession, is something you do, you don't think about. When you begin to introduce social sciences, you force this person to be critical about his or her own role in regard to that thing which some people call like true. I've heard people calling that archivist is about truth. Sorry, tell me what is true, which that's a kind of religious category. We're not talking about here truth, more if we're talking about technology where you have a validation of a digital firm, which is only 5 years. So social science, it's one point on resistance. And when you get into technology, people assume that technology is neutral. Technology has no links to human interest. Technology has no cultural links. And again, you get into this situation where it's more comfortable to people to be the one that is in custody of some papers and be the one that critically needs to understand and has to hold positions that sometimes are not welcomed in society in regard what is memory, what we do, and where we are going to with what we do in archival studies.
So we have another question. This one is for Dr. Christian. So the question is, in what ways can archival innovation in the Amazon challenge dominant global north paradigms of digital preservation and record keeping?
I believe that the first thing is that when you talk about these relations between North and South, we all understand that the South has no voice today within this digital milieu, this digital environment, and has no historical voice. Maybe many of you think about the north of Brazil, the Amazon, as a whole part of the whole Brazilian Confederation. The truth is that the Amazon was a separate capitania. It was Portugal divided Brazil in two reigns, Rio de Janeiro and Grão-Pará, which was the Amazon, and they were independent. When the Kingdom of Brazil decided that it was going to separate from Portugal, and when they became Brazil as a federal country, the last territory to join 1 year late was the North, because they wanted to be part of Portugal. And it was required that the emperor would deliver a squire that would bombard the capital one whole day, so they would surrender. So this was not joining in joyful cheer. This was a war and this was a conquest. So that is lost because the archives of the Amazon are different from the archives of Rio de Janeiro, which are much more well promoted and known. And they hold a different perspective of what Brazil is and what the Amazon is. So all this to say, I believe that maybe the best innovation or the best advance that we could obtain from developing our strong archival science in the Amazon is to learn how to give voice to the South, to Africa, to part of Middle East, where we have just the same problems as we have here.
Thank you. So I think the last thing is that I would like to kindly invite every speaker to deliver the take-home messages for the audience. Yeah. So shall we start with Dr. Magali first?
You asked me my key message for the audience,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Well, I think the key message from the article is that social archival science is very useful in education, and we do believe strongly that we have to connect research in archival science with social sciences and integrate it in our education in order to train archivists that can have reflections and take understand the complexity of the tasks they are doing. So that's the main thing for me.
Thank you so much. Next, Dr. Christian, please.
Well, I would say that our chapter is a case study trying to reflect a struggle here in the Amazon in a world where we all share similar situations, as there's not one Brazil, there are many Brazils. That's one part of what you might learn when you read that article. There's not one United States or one Canada or one Europe. You got many Europes, many Canadas, many United States, and some of those territories do not have voices, have not been considered as part of the official history of the country or their own history as local beings that have to have some memories that they could validate what they are. So I believe that we need more and more case studies trying to show us how this situation of the center periphery reflects into the archival education, so we can be more aware and produce awareness in archivists that we have been forming around the world.
And also from Alexandra.
See, I feel like the very base message of my chapter is we need to rethink how we're doing archival education. Yeah, we need to have more flexibility in learning. Yeah, I feel like there needs to be more disability studies classes within archives programs. I remember when I was at Queen's College in the City University system, we would be told about disability in like introduction classes, and it would feel horrible. Like other disabled people would be like, this is horrible. I don't feel like I belong here. I shouldn't be in a library. I should be collected in a library. So yeah, I think we just need to have more open conversations. We need to not make assumptions about what access looks like. And we need to be flexible. Thanks.
Thank you. I see other two questions coming in the chat box. So the first one is for Dr. Magali from James. So for the universities beside Angers, what kinds of thesis or capstone projects are the students expected to complete?
I just answered James in the chat. So I think it's hard to answer this question because sometimes it's not clear on the websites. But what I can say, I think what I can say is that the more common model is that the students are asked to arrange an archival fund and to comment on the arrangement and the archival institution history. So I think that's the main model.
Thank you. Another question. What strategies have enabled your program to maintain the postgraduate enrollment in the face of persistent misconceptions about the discipline? Yeah. So any speakers would like to respond to this one?
I will respond. Sorry, Magali.
Go ahead,
What-
Christian. I will answer.
very shortly. If the one who's making the question can see all this white hair, which is you have to work like hell. You have to work 10 times. You have to convince people in a way in which no other need to convince. I mean, I believe that we that work in the area of archives, and it's a worldwide situation. There's a charter from UNESCO like 2005, 7, saying we are losing all our heritage in the electronic part. So it is not just in Brazil or maybe in France. It is general idea that seems like this sociologist Bauman is saying, we are in a liquid society. Past does not matter. Everything changes, and we don't need to have all these old memories stored. So I believe that we all share this same situation of, even if you are in a privileged situation in the North, your privilege is less in front from person of biology, of medicine, of finances, and seems to be that we are creating a humanity that has no validation of memories, that does not care about what could happen with the memories.
And about Angers, I think we are very lucky and we receive a lot of applications from our students. I guess around 250 applications for 20 students in our master. So we just make sure that they are familiar with the work they are going to do as an archivist, and that they understand that an archivist is not someone working only on medieval archives or just doing arrangement, but it's more complex. So we make sure they understand first. And obviously we have what we call open days, and the applicants can come to the office to those days, and we insist on the fact that technologies are really important for an archivist. So you have to be familiar with technologies if you want to be an archivist.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't see any other question coming in through the chat. So now we come to the end of our session today. And once again, I would like to thank you, every artist joining us today, for sharing your work and also the insight with us in this session. And also, I would like to thank you, everybody in the audience, for joining, listening, and contributing such a thoughtful question. Also, this book is available now from the Litwin Books and Library Juice Praise, and you can check them out from the links that Sophie posted in the chat box and continue the conversation. So, and also don't forget that tomorrow we also have the second part of this book launch. And I hope that everybody have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. And we hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you
Bye.
all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Have a very nice day.
You too. Thank you, everybody.
Ling.